I'm so excited to share with you today this bonus episode with the amazing astrologer, Sophia. Welcome to the podcast again.
Thank you so much for having me.
For everybody listening, we've only just hit record, but we were having a very robust conversation prior to that because today's episode is all about Jupiter moving into the constellation of Gemini for the first time in 12 years. And yeah, if you know anything about Gemini, you know that it can pull you in lots of different directions. So no doubt our conversation will unfold a little bit like that today. But before we
Yeah.
dive in, and Sophia's going to give us all of the goodness, and I really wanted to focus today's episode on business and marketing and communication, which is her zone of genius, because I think that there's been so much unrest over the last 12 months with Jupiter and Taurus and the conversation around inflation. And lots of people
Mm.
have made huge changes in their business. And I wanted to offer up some hope to everybody today. But change is definitely afoot, which is very exciting in my eyes. But
Mm.
before we get into that nitty gritty, Sophia, do you want to just give us a quick intro of who you are, what you do, and what do you love at the moment about 2024?
Well, who I am. So, my name's Sophia Pallas, and I've been jamming on astrology for the past few years. I'm a former marketer, copywriter, PR girly. I don't really know that I ever identified with that term, but I was in PR, marketing, copywriting. I still am a copywriter, and I still advise people on their businesses because I love to use all that Capricorn Taurus in my chart and really get into the tangible stuff in business and the strategy. And what I love about what's going on in 2024 is that there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of opportunity because of the movement. And one of the main things that I love is Jupiter. And because we're seeing like almost like two sides, which is very Gemini, right? We're seeing two sides of Jupiter this year, I think. And people are really going to feel the shift, I think, from Jupiter in Taurus to Jupiter in Gemini. And there's a lot of activation of that Jupiter when we've now got Pluto in Aquarius, we've got Saturn in Pisces that's also going to activate it. So, yeah, there's just a lot. There's just a lot this year. And I think it's going to give us a bit of a roller coaster ride in business, but it's really going to show us what we want to do, I think, and where we want to be working, especially in online business, because there's just going to be a lot of opportunity for talking and thinking and really like leaning into those things that make online business so awesome. That's my thoughts so far, the initial thoughts.
And have you already noticed with clients that you work with that there's already this energy brewing, or are they not quite there yet?
I think we're still very much in the throes of Jupiter and Taurus, which is like, let's get practical, let's get tangible. There's been a big shift since Jupiter moved into Taurus of really the way that people sell and the way that people market has changed, I think, dramatically. I think a couple of years ago, especially in the online coaching space and even the course creation space, people could put things out there and they could get big results just with no real tangibility to their offer. Like, what are they actually selling? What kind of result am I getting? But also what without the practical steps. And now people are realizing that they really want something practical to ground themselves into because of that Taurus energy. So they really want to see, what am I going to get out of this program? What are those anchor points within your coaching or within whatever it is that you're selling that feels really good to me? People want a lot more one-on-one attention. They're not as comfortable with being part of a big group of people. They really want that personalized attention on their own selves, on their own business. As a client, that's what we're wanting, that real personalized, grounded attention.
Mm.
And that's probably what's going to shift a lot as we move into Jupiter and Gemini. You know, we are really building out, we've really been trying to build out the foundations of strong businesses with Jupiter and Taurus. And sometimes that's felt very confronting, I think, because we've had to realize, especially in a lot of the online industries, like coaching, that there wasn't much tangibility behind these programs, that there wasn't a lot of anchor points, that there was a lot of rhetoric and not much substance. So Jupiter and Taurus has really made us feel into the substance
Mm.
of what we're selling and what we're marketing, what we're buying.
It's interesting too, because I know some people that I connect with as well who have really successful businesses. But it's always interesting when you're in a space that has become a little disrupted, obviously, because there's needed to be things to change. Even if they are great at what they do, they've had to also shift and adapt to the
Yes.
needs. And that can also be a little bit rocky for your confidence. And that's been really
Mm.
interesting, some of the conversations that I've been having, and then really having to remind them of their strengths, what they're innately good at, how can then they cater to this? Because otherwise,
Yes.
I've seen people really give up on their businesses and like,
Yeah.
I don't want to see that.
No, there has been this real sense of like, if I don't make it now, I'm never going to make it.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that is like also what's being highlighted again is the self-worth stuff
Mm,
from of Taurus. Have I really got what it takes to make this work long term? We're really thinking more about the long term and less about the quick wins. And so we get a little bit disheartened when, especially if you're in like a bit of a boom bust online business phase. You know, I launch and I get people and then that drops off, or I'm just not gaining the traction that I thought I would be. Then you can feel really disheartened when you don't have that stability, because Taurus energy is looking for stability and security. And so if you don't feel that it's there, you're probably more likely to go, actually, I want to go get a job because this
mm,
business thing isn't giving me that security and sustainability. I need to go get a job.
yeah.
And it's not so much that your business wouldn't work, it's that you are really feeling that need, that desire for security.
Yeah.
So does that kind of resonate with what you've been seeing with clients as well?
100%. And for a lot of them as well, like the clients I work with on a longer term basis, is I have really proposed to them, like, how can you make this as simple and easy as possible? And that was something that I learned from my mentor when I was like
Yeah.
restructuring things last year. And for some people, that is like making sure you have a retainer client or making sure
Mhm.
that you have a great partnership with somebody, because I know for me personally, if I didn't have these amazing partnerships within my company, is that it would have felt a little wobbly over the last 12 months. But because
Yeah.
of that, it gave me a sense of security, which allowed me to lean into that. So I suppose I'm not just speaking for the clients I connect with, I'm also speaking for myself, is the more I could support my nervous system, especially when there's a
Yeah.
big collective conversation around uncertainty, the more my Virgo control liked that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And I think that's a really great way to use that energy too. If you are really committed to staying in business, how is it that you can create more security in your business, like you say, with retainers or with partnerships that are going to keep like that money flowing comfortably so that you can go and take those risks, I guess, on
Yeah.
top of that. Because we're not in Jupiter in Aries where we're like, yes, let's take all the risks, let's do all the things. You know, now we're contracted, and I think that is the side effect of Jupiter in Taurus,
Oh,
is
yeah.
that we do tend to contract. And you and I have talked about this before, even though it's an expansive energy and we've seen like this expansion in property prices, this expansion in inflation, this expansion in financial markets and things that are related to Taurus, we've felt a contraction
Mm,
because of that expansion. We felt like we need to stay home and stay secure. And it really can hit your nervous system hard when you're feeling that I guess, polarity. Everything's unstable and everything's growing outside of me, and I feel really uncomfortable with that.
Mm.
I want to feel secure. So yeah, really getting nervous system help is a great way to kind of ground yourself through that energy as well. And that's going to play out for the next couple of months. And I think that nervous system health is going to be very important when we move into Jupiter in Gemini. Because if you haven't started working with that now, it's going to get amplified when
Oh,
Jupiter
yeah.
moves into Gemini.
So my midhaven is at Taurus at 29 degrees. And
Oh,
oh, yeah, your midhaven is on the 10th house cusp. For anybody listening, it's related to the mark you make on the world, and the 10th house is public image and career. So with this transit we're about to dive into, that means that I'm going to have Jupiter in Gemini transiting through my 10th house. And
hmm.
I know last week on your podcast, I was only saying I miss that Jupiter energy.
Yeah.
Going to be getting a little bit back, but I think for me,
Lovely.
I need to also make sure that I stay grounded and intentional, because I don't want my nervous system to be in
Mm,
overdrive like it was last time with Jupiter.
yeah. Yeah, because, Jupiter is our planet of expansion. So it can expand what we want, right? It can bring more blessings, it can bring more opportunity, more abundance, more sweetness, all of that good stuff. But it can also expand the things that we don't necessarily want. Like that's the flip side of Jupiter. And it's like I think I was saying this on my own podcast recently. It's like you've got to kind of be aware of keeping the planets happy in some
Mm,
capacity. And remember that even though we love to call, Jupiter the greater benefic, which is like, the big good guy in the sky, if we think back mythologically, Jupiter or Zeus, the Greek god Zeus, he's the king of the gods, right? He's an awesome guy. He's having all the gods as his children. He wasn't always nice to humans. In fact, he was pretty harsh to humans. If you don't do what Jupiter/Zeus wants, you get the thunderbolt. It's almost like, we would often say this about Saturn, do your Saturn work. But I think in a similar way, you need to do your Jupiter. You need to
mm,
keep Jupiter happy in some way. And that might be keeping focus on gratitude, I think is really important for Jupiter, because he wants to know that you are grateful for the blessings and the opportunity that he brings. Like this
mm,
personifying the planet, right? I love to do this because I think it really brings the archetype home for
mm.
us. But he wants to know that you're grateful. So I think we have Jupiter in Taurus or Gemini. Using some sort of gratitude practice is really helpful for getting this energy to work for you, as opposed to amplifying the things that you don't want.
Yeah.
So really being aware of the good things, the sweet things, and, and noticing that. The more you notice what the negative things, the more they may get amplified, especially when Jupiter moves into a very mind focused sign like Gemini, and all of those thoughts are getting bigger.
Okay. So I have a personal question for you first before we kind of move to how this will show up collectively. Because your second
Mhm.
house is ruled by Gemini, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes,
what
it
are you
is.
thinking and feeling for your for your second house transit with Jupiter?
Uh, well, at first I was really excited about it. And then I realized we're having Jupiter in your first house, which I've had Jupiter in my first house for the past year. And there are a lot of blessings that Jupiter does bring you, like I said. But there are always two sides to this story. And especially when it's Gemini energy, we're talking about the twins here. We're talking about duality. So, what I see for a second house transit, which is the house of money and resources, to be clear, is I see that could be amplifying income or revenue, but it could also be amplifying spending.
Yeah.
And it can also be amplifying any money issues, any money blocks. It can amplify those things. And I've certainly seen that when with other clients when they have a Jupiter transit through their second house, it can bring more money, but with that more money often comes a lot of work on money blocks and worthiness, because the second house not only rules our money and our resources, but also our self-worth. So there's those two parts of it also to integrate. It's also the house of spending. I'm like, okay, well, when I've had, for instance, Mars through my second house, I tend to go a little bit crazy on all of the online learning, the books. Oh my God, the amount of astrology books I bought when Mars was in Gemini. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
it's just, and this could be what happens when Jupiter moves into Gemini. So I'm a little bit cautious about that energy. While I do see it could bring great opportunity when it comes to revenue and resources, it can also bring up a lot of issues around self-worth, and it can also bring up spending and a little excessive spending too.
Thank you for sharing with us, because I always think it's nice to provide everyone examples, especially when I think the most beautiful thing we have is we have this unlimited access to data, because we not only are tracking transits all the time, we're observing patterns with clients and hearing their stories. And it sometimes just puts that into context for everybody listening of some of the themes that can show up. And obviously, when we navigate a transit, it's different for all of us based on who we are, our natal chart's blueprint, and how we experience the world. But yeah, I think that we've spoken about this many, many times before, so I won't continue to harp on about it. But everybody thinks Jupiter's really sexy, and I love a bit of Jupiter, but also in excess, it can make you go overboard. And I've even seen for some people, in particular positioning in natal charts, like it can invite you to overeat. Your waistline can expand. There's so many things that Jupiter can do, and that to me isn't maybe as sexy as we want it to be.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. It does come down to what Jupiter is up to in your chart and how important it is, and what it's doing can then get amplified by that Jupiter transit.
Okay, so give us the 411 for business, for communication, for marketing. This is like the tea that we're all here for.
Okay. Well, I've kind of already touched on a bit of the background.
Yep.
In terms of Jupiter's moving from this grounded, earthy sign that is connected with the fundamentals, the Taurus energy, to a fast-thinking, fast-talking, abstract air sign that absolutely loves to communicate, loves to connect the dots, loves to gossip and get, like, not that all, I'm not saying Geminis are gossips, but there is this energy of like the whispers, the words flying around all the time. Like, that's kind of Gemini energy. With Jupiter in Gemini, I see that opportunities are going to come through our connections, our communication, our learning, and experimentation, because Gemini is also like this playful experimentation type energy as well. It's related to inventiveness, to dexterity, to things like luck with language as well, like luck with words, and even with machines. Like Jupiter in Gemini can relate to luck with machines. I had done some research on this, and apologies, I should have done it again just before we chatted. But people like, I think it was Alexander Graham Bell, I think he had Jupiter in Gemini. And like people who have invented these amazing technological devices for us, right? Like, you know, where would we be without a phone?
Not connected.
You know, that is such a Jupiter and Gemini invention. And so that's the kind of thing to think about, like, what's going to come of this in terms of business is related to what is inventive in communication, and where are we going to be able to connect the dots that we maybe couldn't connect the dots before. This kind of, for business, this implies to me like there is going to be an expanded need to communicate, or there's going to be an amplification in communication in some way. So maybe for us in online business, I think this is great because we're already here. We're like, it's like being at the front of the wave, right? We're on the wave. we're getting ready to surf that wave as everybody else kind of catches up with us. And so if you're already in the industry of learning and communication, awesome. This is going to be a fantastic time for you because Jupiter in Gemini definitely amplifies communication skills. People are going to be more curious. People are going to be more open-minded. People are going to want to exchange and learn, exchange ideas and learn new things. So that's awesome. It might lead to, for a business side, an expansion in kind of events and speaking opportunities as well, because we've had such contraction around, in-person events. I mean, they have been coming back online over the past couple of years, but I really think this could be a time when things like that surge forward, because we'll feel like we want to be connected again in person, and we want to be sharing ideas with each other in groups and not just online, more of that connection and being in a room full of people could be really exciting to us. The kind of flip side of that in business is this information overload. And we're really going to need to be more discerning when it comes to what we're working on, what we're communicating about. And like, I think I said at the beginning, I was like, the theme of this episode is too many tabs open, like too much stuff happening. You've got to kind of be careful of not getting drawn into all of these different ideas and directions, because Jupiter's there to amplify that. Like, how can you be more discerning with what you're creating, marketing, and selling when Jupiter is in Gemini? Because if you're not, you're definitely going to feel probably burnt out by the amount of stuff you are creating and communicating and doing. Yes, those are my thoughts. What do you think about how this is going to play out?
I 100% echo what you've said. I think that is exactly how things will unfold. And I think it'll be great for people that have really strong brands, or they're already making tweaks and adjustments to whether it's their messaging, their marketing. And that's been the most beautiful gift with Jupiter and Taurus. It's been about being really strategic. So if something's not working, how do you change it? And I love that with then Jupiter and Gemini coming on board. What I would say for everyone listening is have a look at where Gemini is in your natal chart. What house is governed by Gemini? Do you have any planets in Gemini? Because essentially this planet's going to be illuminating them and activating them for the first time in 12 years. And so that will give you some indications of, where you're going to really experience this flavor. The one thing I'm really curious to see, because actually I'd love your thoughts on this as well, because this was something I've only stumbled across recently. And have you had a look at this faceless marketing that keeps popping up?
Faceless marketing? No.
Okay. So this is interesting. And I'm wondering how this actually ties into Pluto and Aquarius, and then also how it will transpire once Jupiter moves into Gemini. So around December of last year, faceless marketing started popping up as a bit of a trend, and a lot of accounts started surfacing. And essentially what they're doing is they are using like a marketing model. So I don't know who essentially started this method, but what you do is you have like a course, you have some downloadable products, and you not only sell those to your community. If they buy them, they then have the rights to use them and then sell them off to their community. So it sounds a little bit like multi-level marketing.
Multi-level marketing yes, actually I have heard of that, but I didn't know that it was called faceless marketing.
Okay. Yeah. So there's some rights to it. Now it's been interesting. There's actually been a couple of people I've just been following online just to see like what's the response like from the audience. I think the people that initially got into it will thrive. I think what will happen, it will oversaturate the market. But I'm still such a big believer that people shop people, not brands. And I think people will crave that even more with Jupiter moving into Gemini, because Gemini for me is all about connection. It's about like, it's that communication, it's that banter. You need that with somebody. And I think if someone has, say, for instance, a faceless marketing account and the messaging is strong, that's amazing, because that's one piece of the puzzle, but it's only going to get you so far. There's some limitations to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, and this is also with the rise of AI, I think those are the similar kind of this concept of like people are going nuts because they can produce so much content with AI. And so the content that's coming out the other end is really pretty average. I think we're going to go through like a bit of a surge of all of this, and then it's going to have to be stripped back down again. And maybe it's going to take the full year of Jupiter and Gemini for all of this stuff to come out and for us to realize that actually what we want is more connection and more emotional connection with the content. And then Jupiter will move into Cancer and we'll get that, back again. Do you know what I mean? Like
Totally.
it's been building, and because we were talking offline before, we're going to see this activation of Jupiter and Gemini like we've never experienced before, because it's going to be trine by Pluto in Aquarius, which is, technology. And that's where I see AI and potentially what you're talking about with the faceless marketing, these new innovative types of doing what we've been doing as coming along and getting this massive boost, but also we'll quickly realize that that's probably not going to feel very good. Like that is just getting a huge amplification. There is so much AI technology now available to us in the online business world, whether it comes to writing your show notes for your podcast, or writing a post for you, or creating images, or whatever it is. There's so much, and we are going to need to get really clear on what's a good tool for us, what's worth our time, and the shadow side of that.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be really shown, again, this is the amplification of the bits that we don't like, the shadow of all of this activation of technology and communication, as well as the benefit. Like we're going to
Yeah.
see the benefit of that. We're going to see this has made my job so much easier, but there is this other side to it. And getting traction, one thing I'm cautious about with Jupiter and Gemini is that getting traction in your marketing is going to become more difficult because there's going to be so much more noise happening. So you really are going to want to pick a platform. I think this is kind of something that you want to think about for your business, is really pick a platform and go hard on that platform. And I think things like podcasting are going to go nuts with this energy because, as you say, it is a connection. Like people feel connected to you through a podcast, and it's also information, and it's also speaking, which is very much Gemini energy, and fast and easy to consume and all of that stuff. And it's like words through the air. Like I just think of Jupiter and Gemini as amplifying the words through the air, right? So I think podcasting is going to be one of those places that we see really take off with that energy. I also think YouTube. I actually think video content, and the reason video content will probably do better is because people are going to be able to see you and know if it's real. Like, yes, there are plenty of AI tools now that fake videos. I get that. But I think most of us are operating under the belief that at least 90% of the public aren't faking their video, at the moment,
Yeah.
as opposed to your content, which can easily be faked,
Mm.
which it's not necessarily fake. It's created through AI. It's not as easy to clone yourself on video yet.
Yeah. Great.
That may be coming, but that's why I think podcasts and YouTube are going to go well through this time, because it's harder to fake that. It's more connective. It gives that like feeling of being connected with another human, and it's also something that is more difficult for AI to replicate.
Yeah.
Not that there are not tools, like I already know there are eye contact tools and stuff that you can like edit your videos so that it looks like you're always looking in the right place, and lots of stuff like that.
That's so creepy.
And dubbing tools for different languages, which could be really helpful for some people. But those things are going to be probably more prevalent. We're going to be like, is she actually speaking Spanish? Or is she an English speaker? I've already tried that one out, by the way, and it's super creepy.
Oh, wow. Because
Like
Spotify
dumb
have started doing that now. I was listening to it on a podcast, like a global podcast, and apparently, yeah, Spotify then just take it, then they like can
clone your
just,
voice.
yeah, put it through AI and you're speaking another language.
I still think that those words through the air, this words through the air
Mm,
concept, I do love actually that Saturn is in Pisces to kind
yeah.
of bring back a little bit of perspective, not ground it down, but it really pulls it down, you know?
What's
Um,
important? What gives you
mm,
meaning? How do you operate with
yeah.
purpose?
So you're going to need to kind of anchor yourself. That's the way that I think about this. Jupiter in Gemini with the Saturn in Pisces is the Saturn in Pisces is the anchor. It's literally the anchor drop to the bottom of the ocean, you know, and your little kite's flying up there or your little boat and it wants to go in all the directions and you've got to keep coming back to the anchor
Yeah.
so you don't get lost or blown away by all
Yeah.
the air energy.
And I think just to touch on AI quickly is because I know that people really split down the middle at the moment. And some
Mm,
people, especially people in creative industries, they're feeling really depleted by that because it's taking away the creative process. And other people, again, it's made their work more efficient. They can do more. And look, I use AI. I don't use
mm,
ChatGPT because I feel like everything I see that has been rinsed through that, you can 100% tell. I have it through my Notion dashboards. I have it plugged in through there and use it as more like a brainstorm ideas. But what I've
yeah.
been saying to people that have been worried about it is that when is the last time that you read something or saw something that completely moved you that was
Mm,
created by AI? And I think because I'm in
no.
my reading era this year, and so
Mm,
I've been reading a lot and have felt really moved by picking up a book again as well. And that experience moves me every time I read something, yeah, that's interesting or insightful or gives me a window into somebody's life. You don't get that from even some of the books I've seen edited with AI. They don't evoke that same feeling. Does that make sense?
mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's always going to be the stumbling block of AI. While it can replicate things sometimes spookily well, it still doesn't feel real. It still doesn't feel like somebody's essence. And I actually had a podcast chat about AI imagery recently and we were talking about like the benefit of still having a photo shoot versus using AI to create these beautiful branded images for yourself. I don't believe that AI can capture your essence. Like I just don't. You can use AI to do these magic photos, make you look fantastic, but it's kind of like well, it is like Photoshop, right?
Mm.
And you can't portray your true essence through that in a photo wise, just the same way as you can't portray it in the written form. You've got to be able to connect with your audience. They're not going to buy from you if they don't feel that connection. So you can use AI, and I love using AI for brainstorming. I actually love using it for astrology
Mm.
because it gives you some great ideas. I'm always thinking about how astrology connects with marketing. There's some great prompts that you can use with that because, ChatGPT knows like all of the astrology information is there
An
in.
astrology plugin now, isn't there?
Oh, I haven't tried
With
that.
yeah, so there's one of my clients was using it, which I thought was an amazing idea. She uses it in between our astro strategy sessions because she has the paid version of ChatGPT. So when she sees something
Yeah.
come up on TikTok, she can go into the astrology component of it and ask it questions just to give some
Ah.
more context, which I thought was great. I ended up doing some research though, and I found the original plugin. And so I tried it. I didn't 100% love it, but I think it's great for how she uses it. But if I think of astrology as a language, like it gives you perspective,
Yeah.
right?
I think about it in terms of like, for instance, copywriting. So give me some ideas on how a person with, and I give it a few different prompts, like how does
Yeah.
a person with Mercury and Aries communicate? And it gives you some ideas. And then, okay, so the person has Mercury and Aries. What about a person with Mercury and Aries combined with Venus in Gemini?
Yeah.
How does that flavor it? And it just does these little like combos for you to give you some ideas for how
Yeah.
to write with it or what might work for this client. I love how you can use that data and come up with a fresh concept.
Yeah.
But the words that it spits out, like if you get it to actually write the copy for you, it's terrible. But it just gives you the ideas, right? I'm sure the copy is going to improve. That's the scary part. If you
Yeah.
know how to write and if you know how to ask the right questions, you've got to remember that the quality of the AI comes down to the user's questions, the use of it.
Mm.
If you're going to use it in an intelligent way, then you will get an intelligent answer that's actually usable, but it still won't capture your essence. There's
No.
still there's always going to be that barrier, but it can give you some really, really helpful information for then you to go away and use. And I think that this is another thing that we're going to see with Jupiter and Gemini, because it's about connecting the dots. How can we ask better questions? Of not only of AI, but of ourselves and of the people, of our clients, of the people in our networks. How can we get better at that? This is what Jupiter's there to expand. Like, how can we connect those dots and really, find out new things and access information like we never have before in new ways?
There's lots of different ways people can work with Jupiter and Gemini, but if there was one thing that you would love everyone to take away with this energy, especially as women in business, what would that be?
Well, I'm hoping that it's going to lighten the mood. That's the one thing I'd like us to take away. I love Taurus energy, as you know, but I do think it can be a little bit of a stick in the mud. And I'm speaking for myself here. I can be that energy. And I think Jupiter in Gemini could be something that lifts our mood, that brings us a little optimism, a little fun, a little playfulness. We can't take life too seriously with Gemini energy. There's a little bit more of like embracing the inner child because of that curiosity. So enjoy the playfulness, get inspired, get those new ideas. Try not to get scattered, but at the same time, you've got to lean into the curiosity of this energy